Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming SCS exams happening in August 2025. My name is Nicholas, and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes. First things first, I'm going to share some tips which will ensure that you achieve a sure pass in your upcoming examination, because as I know, some of you had failed the SCS exam previously, and therefore you are joining this session. So I will highlight the type of shortcomings which you might have encountered when conducting your preparations, and focused on each shortcoming, I will explain what you need to do to overcome these shortcomings. If so, then you can easily pass this examination. And after that, I'm going to teach you crucial answering and time management techniques. After teaching these techniques, I will, explain how you should apply these techniques in a practical sense when I'm taking you through mock exam 1. I've, selected one single subtask taken from mock exam 1. So when explaining the logic behind the answer, I will also explain how to implement the answering and time management techniques, which I'm going to teach you in a little while. All right, so before we get into the technicalities, let me quickly remind you of the upcoming webinars and workshops we have scheduled for you. So the fourth workshop, exam prep, is happening next Saturday at the same time, 9 GMT or 10 AM UK, in which I'm going to take you through examiners' comments, because it's essential that you understand what the examiner expects from you. And on top of that, I will share some tips which will ensure that you boost your confidence levels. Also, most importantly, I will be teaching you stress management techniques. And on top of the answering and time management techniques, which you'd learn in today's webinar, after you have learned stress management techniques in next Saturday's webinar, I expect you to keep practicing these three techniques, answering, time management, and stress management techniques, whenever you are attempting a mock exam under exam conditions. So after we are done with the webinar series, we are kickstarting our workshop series, which starts with the workshop which is focused on your F3 syllabus, followed by P3 and E3 workshops as well. And in each of these workshops, I will be taking you through your syllabus areas, thereby explaining how your knowledge can be tested, which areas can be tested. And also in each of these workshops, I will be conducting a Q&A. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can get them addressed. Additionally, I will be taking you through, parts of our mock exams concerning your F3, P3, and E3 syllabi. And in the final workshop, which happens 2 or 3 days before your examination, I will be sharing last-minute tips with you to make sure that you walk into the exam with a high level of positivity. So make use of these free resources on offer. I hope you'd attend our webinars and workshops on a weekly basis, which is the best way to get your questions answered. And at the same time, this is the best way to keep tabs about your performance each and every week. All right. So having said that, let's try to figure out what type of shortcomings you encountered last time, and focused on each shortcoming, let's try to figure out what you need to do to overcome each of your shortcomings. So before we understand our shortcomings, or with the intention of understanding your shortcomings, first things first, you need to conduct a personal reflection. And when conducting this personal reflection, you have to be honest with yourself. You need to really figure out whether you gave your best shot or not. And another objective of conducting this personal reflection is to identify where you went wrong in the examination. So you need to diagnose the reasons first and take steps to address them before conducting your preparations focused on your SCS exams happening in August. So you will gain a good understanding of what type of shortcomings you have encountered, and on top of that, the type of mistakes you faced when conducting your previous preparations, by referring to the mock exams, the suggested answers, and the answer plans, because then you will gain an in-depth understanding of how your knowledge is tested and what type of answers you should have developed in order to pass your previous sitting. So by going through our mock exams, the suggested answers, and the answer plans, you will gain a good understanding of the type of shortcomings which you experienced. Probably you didn't know that you were facing some problems. You didn't know what was wrong with your answering technique. You didn't know the type of answers you should have developed. Probably you didn't know, how your knowledge areas concerning your E3, P3, and F3 syllabi can be tested at the exam. So all these things can be fixed by referring to our mocks, suggested answers, and the answer plans. And after conducting this personal reflection, after identifying what went wrong, you need to develop an action plan, which is to work smarter than the previous attempt. So I'm not asking you to work harder than the previous attempt. Instead, I'm asking you to work smarter than the previous attempt. And the smartest way to do your things is to stick to our study plan. So after this session, if you failed the previous examination, right after this session, via the WhatsApp group, I will share a study plan with you. And if you stick to the study plan, you can easily pass this examination. So it's not about spending a lot of time to go through your theories, then trying to figure out application on your own. If you try to do these things, you will end up wasting a lot of time. Instead, you need to adopt or adhere to a smarter approach, which is to focus on a 3-step process, which we have preached throughout this webinar series. So in the first webinar, I explained the study plan, and in today's session, in a little while, I will explain the study plan as well. In it, I will explain what this 3-step study process is all about. So you have to master each mock exam by sticking to this three-step process, which I'm going to explain in a little while. And if you do so, you are taking steps not only to attempt all mock exams, but also you are taking steps to refine your answering technique. You are taking steps to learn theory and application at the same time, which will save you a lot of time. And therefore, you can take steps to improve your revision or improve your answering and time management techniques by conducting revision in the most appropriate manner. Because just attempting mocks won't help. You need to spend some time to refine your techniques. And the only way to refine your techniques is to conduct revision. And I will explain how you should do so, how you should conduct revision in the most appropriate manner once I've taught you the answering and time management techniques. So having said that, let's try to figure out why students fail this SCS examination. So the biggest problem is students just practicing 2 or 3 mock exams. So if you practice just 2 or 3 mock exams, you are not taking steps to gain an understanding of how each syllabus area can be tested at the examination. So you did this mistake in your last sitting, in which, you attempted just 2 or 3 mock exams, thereby preparing yourself partially. The problem is, especially if you are coming through an exemption route, if you are partially prepared, you won't know how each syllabus area can be tested at the exam, because this is a highly practical examination. The examiner is never going to say, okay, utilize this theoretical concept and conduct your evaluation. Instead, the examiner is simply going to test your understanding by throwing an open-ended question at you. So for instance, there could be a question tied to the SCF framework, but the examiner won't mention the SCF framework. Instead, the examiner would say, evaluate this strategic option. So you should have the capability of understanding, okay, when it comes to evaluating strategic options, I am supposed to utilize the SCF framework. And alternatively, if there's a question tied to stakeholder management, then you should know that the Mendelow's matrix should be utilized when developing the answer. So if there's a question tied to updating the risk register, there's a 4-step process which you need to adhere to when you are trying to update the risk register. So you should have the capability of what these 4 steps are. And you should have an understanding of utilizing the information shared within each scenario when developing your answer, focusing on 4 main steps. So also, if there's a question tied to gearing or debt and equity, then the examiner is never going to say, okay, consider the gearing ratio and evaluate the funding options. Instead, simply the examiner would say, okay, evaluate funding options. So when evaluating funding options, you should know that you should consider debt and equity. And when considering both, it's essential that you consider the gearing ratio, the present gearing ratio, and the post-project gearing ratio. So likewise, there's a way in which each syllabus area can be tested at the exam. So by practicing just 2 or 3 mock exams, you are not in a position to be aware of how each syllabus area can be tested and how each question will be worded. And based on the wording of each question, what type of theoretical concept you should use, you won't gain a good understanding of all these things if you attempt just 2 or 3 mock exams. So that's the first part. And the second part tied to attempting mocks partially is the fact that if you attempt, let's assume you attempted just 3 mock exams last time. If so, you have attempted 15 subtasks in total. But at the exam, 70 odd subtasks can be tested. So at the exam, I'm not saying that in the entire paper you will see 70 odd subtasks, but when conducting your preparations, if you are to be fully prepared, then it's essential that you go through all 70 subtasks which can be tested at the exam. If so, if you had seen the type of questions, and at the same time, if you had taken steps to conduct revision and understand how to tackle each subtask, then you are fully prepared. Then you are not testing your luck. So why should you simply, try to attempt just 15 subtasks when at the exam, 70 different subtasks, your knowledge concerning 70 different subtasks can be tested. So that's exactly what you can see when you look at our syllabus coverage document as well. So there's a lot of theoretical concepts tested concerning your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So strategy, evaluation, and formulation, there's a lot of tools which you have to be conversant with. And with regards to board responsibilities, you have to look at multiple angles, especially given the fact that we are a quoted company. And you have to be conversant with corporate governance and ethics, how to run this business in the most ethical manner, how to fall in line with multiple guidance provided via the Combined Code of Corporate Governance, which is practiced in the UK. Then you have to be conversant with finance strategy. Various different tools should be utilized when conducting your evaluations concerning the finance strategy or the long run finance management initiatives of your company. And you should have a good understanding of the type of risks which are highlighted within your risk report, the type of shortcomings, because certain risks, as I mentioned in last week's pre-scene analysis, I said that the Leothayre has not identified all types of risks within its risk report. So you should have an understanding of the type of risks the company has disregarded, and at the same time, focusing on the risks which the company has identified, you have to have the capability of understanding whether the mitigatory action adopted by the company is foolproof or not. If there are shortcomings, you should have the capability of suggesting better risk mitigatory strategies. So that's why you have to be conversant with various different risks, not just the risks which appear within your risk report. Instead, you have to be conversant with additional risks as well. That is why you can see not just 6 different risks which we have considered. Instead, we have considered multiple risks to ensure that you are fully prepared to face your examination. So similarly, you have to be conversant about internal audit responsibilities and how to implement internal controls as well. So this is a vast syllabus if you really look at it. Although your knowledge is tested in an extremely practical manner, you have to be conversant with all theoretical areas. And the only way to make sure that you have you are fully prepared is to make sure that you cover all these subtasks when conducting your preparations. So you cannot cover all subtasks if you have attempted just 2 or 3 mock exams previously. And if you're planning to attempt just 2 or 3 mocks this time, well, all the best to you. You are taking a huge risk. So rather than taking a risk rather than testing your luck, it's essential that you attempt all the mocks which we have developed to make sure that you cover all syllabus areas and you are conversant with how each syllabus area can be tested at your real examination. And also, not practicing mocks under simulated exam conditions is a problem because I took some calls last Thursday because on the group I said if you had failed, get in touch with me via WhatsApp, and so many students got in touch with me who ended up failing last time, and almost everyone said that they did not attempt full mock exams under exam conditions. So what happens is students gain access to mock exams, but when it comes to conducting preparations, what they will do is, especially concerning mock attempts, as you know, there are 3 different sections in each mock exam. So students tend to attempt section number 1 today, section number 2 tomorrow, and section number 3 day after tomorrow. But at the exam, you have to complete all 3 sections one after the other without any breaks between each section. So it's not easy to sit in one place across 3 hours and be exposed to extreme levels of stress, because if you had attempted your exam previously, you know what I'm talking about. You will be somewhat comfortable in section number 1, but in section number 2, due to fatigue, you will see some type of surge in your stress levels, and in section number 3, you will experience something called brain freeze. Brain freeze occurs when you are stressed so much. Because of that, you become emotional, you panic, and when you become emotional, you cannot come up with an appropriate answer. So all this happens due to fatigue. So you are supposed to operate in a time pressured environment. So it's essential that you take steps to encounter these problems, encounter these complexities when attempting each mock exam, rather than facing these problems for the first time at your real examination. Because when you focus these problems for the first time at your exam, definitely you will panic, definitely you will experience extreme levels of stress, and extreme levels of stress leads to brain freeze. And when you cannot think anything, you will end up losing a lot of time, losing a lot of marks, because you will not come up with high quality answers. When this is the case, definitely you are going to fail your examination. So it's essential that you practice each mock exam under exam conditions. That is exactly why we at TCS, we have developed the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system on which you attempt your real examination. So we have put in a lot of effort with the intention of ensuring that you have the opportunity of attempting each mock exam under exam conditions. When this is the case, you will encounter all these type of problems which I highlighted a while back with regards to stress, time pressure, and brain freeze. It's good that you encounter these problems when conducting your preparations rather than facing them at your real examination. So in a little while, as you know, I'm going to teach you an answering and time management technique, and I want you to practice these answering and time management techniques whenever you are attempting each of our mock exams. When you do so, you are taking steps to refine your time management, refine the quality of your answers. And in next week's webinar, after I've taught you stress management techniques, again, when attempting mock exams, you are supposed to practice stress management techniques as well. So this practice, or trying to master these 3 techniques, answering, time management, and stress management, will be extremely beneficial for you at your real examination. Because if you master these techniques, you will develop high quality answers, you will never run out of time, and when you don't run out of time, you will not encounter stressful situations. Okay, so that's the second problem which you need to fix. And the third problem is lack of technical knowledge concerning your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So a while back, I showed you the type of syllabus areas which can be tested, which were taken. I took you through our syllabus coverage document. So if you lack theoretical or conceptual knowledge, you cannot pass this examination. Yes, you can come up with practical answers if there's a question tied to strategic option evaluation. You can consider the advantages and disadvantages of a certain strategic option at our disposal. You can do so, but you can't come up with a foolproof answer. You can't come up with a holistic answer. In order to develop a holistic answer, in order to gain full marks, it's essential that you use something like the SAF framework. Because when you utilize the SAF framework, as you know, you are looking at whether the strategy is aligned with our vision, mission, and values, whether the strategy is aligned with the needs of our main stakeholders, whether we have the financial and non-financial resources to implement the strategy. So if you are, instead of utilizing the SAF framework, if you are considering the advantages and disadvantages, what happens is you might not think about the stakeholders. You might not think about whether the strategy is aligned with our vision, mission, and values. You might not think about, or forget to think about, whether we can implement this strategy by looking at the financial and non-financial resource capabilities. So in order to come up with or develop foolproof answers as and when necessary, you are supposed to utilize your conceptual knowledge. That's why it's essential that you learn all theoretical areas. That's why we have painstakingly developed our mock exams to make sure that we cover all syllabus areas so that you are aware of how each syllabus area is tested. And at the same time, you are aware of how to structure your answers considering the theoretical knowledge or conceptual knowledge which we have learned so far. And also tied to this problem, there is a shortcoming in application of knowledge, which leads to a failure as well. So just because you know your theories, you cannot pass this examination. Instead, you need to really work on your application skills. So in a little while, after I've taught you answering and time management techniques, I'm going to take you through one of the mocks which we have developed. When going through this answer or taking you through this answer, I will explain application skills. So if you provide highly theoretical answers, you are never going to pass this examination. Instead, when developing your answers, your job is to consider the information presented in each scenario and develop an answer which is totally aligned with the information shared with you. And when developing your answer, as and when necessary, bring in theoretical knowledge, but don't name a theoretical concept or don't try to explain a theoretical concept. Because always think, okay, I'm playing the role of a senior finance manager. I'm, doing a practical job. Whenever you receive an email from your boss at work, will you ever explain theoretical concepts, or will you come up with a practical answer, thereby addressing the requirement? And when developing this practical answer, you will definitely utilize the conceptual knowledge which you have gained via the CIMA syllabus, right? Rather than that, if you try to explain theoretical concepts, your boss is going to be pissed. So, there's absolutely no point of doing something similar at your examination. So if you are coming through an exemption route, definitely you have access to the FLP dashboard, and there are certain videos and study resources which are tied to your competency exams, which come with the FLP dashboard. The problem is these resources are intended to simply teach you theory. Just by learning theory, you won't understand how to work on your application. So in order to learn theory and application, we have developed two study resources. One is the answer plan, which we are going to see in a little while. And also, based on these answer plans, we have developed masterclasses. And the objective of developing each masterclass is to make sure that you understand the logic behind each answer, and at the same time, understand the theoretical concepts covered, thereby learning theory, and at the same time, understanding how to work on your application. So we are teaching you the theoretical elements and application at the same time via the masterclasses. So you need not waste time to learn theory on your own and then trying to figure out try to figure out application on your own. Rather than wasting time, we have covered everything via our answer plans and the masterclasses. When you watch the masterclasses, you will learn all syllabus areas, how each syllabus area can be tested, and at the same time, you will learn how to work on your application skills. So if you are coming through an exemption route, it's essential that you fix these knowledge areas as well as gaps in application. Also, looking at your marks which you achieved in your previous sitting, if you scored more than 70, then it indicates that you know your theories. It's simply a matter of improving your application. And on the other hand, if you scored less than 70, then it indicates that you have gaps in theory knowledge, and at the same time, you have issues with application. So based on your mark, try to understand where you stand as a student, and then utilize the resources which we have developed so that in a short period of time, you can learn theories and at the same time improve your application. And also, another problem is students trying to rely on past exam variants or past papers, which is a major problem. Why am I saying it? Because if you had gone through past exam variants, you would have understood that each of the papers developed are aligned with a previous pre-seen document. So, for instance, looking at the pre-seen, which was utilized in November 2024 and February 2025 sitting, it was based on a totally different company which operates in a totally different industry. And for instance, and most crucially, the risk report which appeared in the pre-scene, which was relevant for November 2024 and February 2025 sessions, are totally irrelevant to Leothayre, because Leothayre's risks are totally different. So because of that, when conducting your preparations, it's essential that you practice mock exams which are 100% aligned with your pre-scene. Because if you try to rely on past variants or past papers, you will be misdirected or misguided, because when you go through these mock exams and when you try to go through the suggested answers with the intention of understanding the logic, you will not really understand why these answers were developed, because these answers were developed concerning a different company which operates in a totally different industry. And the same could be said about the beta value as well. So the last pre-scene's beta value has nothing to do with Leothayre's beta value, because the beta has everything to do with the industry in which we operate, the type of risks which we face, and the type of uncertainty within our industry, as opposed to the last time's pre-scene, which highlighted a company which was operating in a stable business environment. So because of that, their share price was not risky as Leothayre's. So, I'm highlighting all the differences to make sure that you understand how essential it is to conduct your preparations based on exam standard and pre-scene specific study resources and mock exams. Don't waste time trying to decrypt the logic of suggested answers of previous papers or past exam variants, because these are based on a totally different pre-scene. In order to understand the logic fully, you have to take steps to decrypt a totally different pre-scene. So when you are running out of time, why should you waste time to decrypt a totally different pre-scene and then go through the suggested answers to figure out the logic when you have access to pre-scene specific mock exams and study resources? And also, inappropriate answering and answering technique is a problem which leads to time wastage at your examination. So 99% of the students out there, right after reading through the scenario, what they would do is they'd start typing out the final answer in paragraph form without spending time to plan or without spending time to think. If you did it previously, you have to let go of this technique, because it is not going to help you. Because let's assume right after reading through the scenario, you started typing your final answer, and halfway through the answer, you figured out, okay, my answer is not aligned with the requirement, or my answer is inaccurate. When this is the case, you will end up deleting the entire answer and you'd have to start from scratch. When this happens, your brain will constantly keep you reminded of the fact that you have wasted time. And when this is the case, when your brain is telling you, okay, you have wasted time, and you have wasted time, you will try to rush the process. When you're trying to rush the process, you are developing half-hearted answers, or you are not actually spending any time to plan. Instead, you are trying to type out the answer by coming up with any type of answer point, which is not going to help you. Your objective should be to improve the quality of your answers, and the only way to improve the quality of your answers is to spend some time to plan out your answer. This is exactly what you would do at office. If you receive a long email with a lot of information, rather than coming up with an instantaneous response, you will take some time to figure out the information. You will take some time to develop a response or structure a response with the intention of covering all the information which was shared with you. You will always try to figure out whether your response is aligned with the requirements. So there's some planning which you'd put in at office. So similarly, at this examination, since the examiner is trying to replicate a real life corporate environment, you need to spend some time to structure your answers or plan your answers. That is exactly why we are conducting this webinar, because the most important element of this webinar is the answering and time management techniques, which I'm going to teach you in a little while. Because if you master your answering technique, you will not waste time. Therefore, you won't run out of time. And when you don't run out of time, you will not encounter unnecessary stressful situations. So you can avoid stress and brain freeze if you stick to the answering and time management technique, which I'm going to teach you in today's session. But note that just learning these techniques won't help. In order to get your bearings with these techniques, it's essential that you practice these techniques across the mocks which we have developed. If this is the case, then by the time you are done with all mock exams, you have mastered answering and time management techniques, and at your real examination, you will structure your answers properly, you will develop high quality answers, and you will never run out of time. And when you're not running out of time, you will not encounter stressful situation. So these two problems can be fixed after today's session and when you practice these two techniques. And another problem is lack of evaluation or lack of revision, because it's essential, as I mentioned earlier, just attempting the mocks won't help. After attempting each mock exam, you need to take steps to revise your knowledge or do something called redevelop answer plans. So I'm going to explain what an answer plan is, how you should develop an answer plan in a little while. And after attempting each mock exam, you are supposed to redevelop answer plans. This is when you are trying to figure out whether you have, you have the capability of structuring answers properly, whether you have the capability of coming or developing logical answers, and at the same time you are trying to figure out whether you have learned something via the theoretical concepts which you have learned via E3, F3 and P3 syllabi, and whether you know how to work on your application skills. So it's essential that you revise, and that is why we have developed answer plans, which you are going to see in a little while. So these answer plans are there to make sure that you can easily conduct your revision, and your job after attempting each mock exam is to keep redeveloping answer plans over and over until you are satisfied about the fact that you are capable of replicating the answer plans which we have shared with you. If you can replicate our answer plans, then at your exam, you will be able to, or you will be capable to develop answers which are intended to get full marks. All right, so it's essential to conduct your revision. So last time, if you simply attempted mocks and walked into the exam, you have not, it indicates the fact that you have not taken any steps to refine your answering and time management technique. It's essential that you refine these two techniques. If not, you'd have to keep repeating this exam over and over. And non-adherence to a study plan is a major problem as well. So that is why we have developed an 8-week study plan and shared it with you via our website. So most of you are already sticking to this study plan. But if you are yet to start preparations, don't worry. I will share a revised study plan with you, thereby explaining what you need to achieve in the upcoming 5 weeks. And if you stick to the study plan, you can easily pass this examination. So there's no point of waiting until the last 2 or 3 weeks to start preparations. Start prep right now if you're planning to sit in August. If that is the case, you will have enough time to attempt all the mock exams and also to conduct revision focused on the same mock exams. Okay, so these are the major shortcomings which leads to a failure. And for each of these shortcomings, I shared some solutions with you. All right, so having said that, let's focus our attention towards the answering technique or answer plans. So let me quickly show you what an answer plan typically should look like. So your first things first, your final answer should be in paragraph form. Yeah, so as you can see in this document, this is the suggested answer which we have developed for mock exam 1. So in this suggested answer, you can see that the entire answer script is in paragraph form. I've utilized subheadings and main headings. Just main headings can be seen in here. There can be subheadings as well. Yeah, yes, there are subheadings as well. And throughout this document, you can see that information is presented in paragraphs. However, yes, this is your final answer. But when it comes to planning your answer, I said that you need to spend some time. Right after reading through the scenario, you need to spend some time to structure your answer or to plan your answer. So when it comes to planning your answer, you need to develop something called the answer plan, which looks like this. So your final answer is a lengthy one, which is in multiple, which carries multiple paragraphs. But in here, you can see that everything is in bullet points or, one or two, words or one single sentence. And you should spend some time to plan out your answer, thereby understanding the type of information which you should include when developing your answers. So this is what an answer plan should look like. So first things first, I'm going to explain how to develop this type of an answer plan, because once you have developed this type of an answer plan, your next step is to flesh out this answer plan or this answer skeleton or answer structure by explaining each of the points in paragraph form. Okay, so that is exactly what I'm going to teach you right now. So first things first, our answering technique starts by reading the scenario. So as you would have seen in your previous papers, if you have attempted the SCS exam previously, you would have understood that knowledge, some type of information is shared with you as an email, or your CFO or some other board member meets you at your workstation and hands over a document and whatnot. So it's the examiner creates a practical real life situation. So as you can see, if you look at section number 1, you are receiving an email from the CFO, and the subject goes as diversification and industry pressures, and there's some type of information which is shared with you, and there are various different subtasks as well with percentages. Subtask A, the percentage is 30%, so these are your requirements. Subtask B, the percentage is 20%, and subtask C, the percentage is 50%. And along with it, you will gain access to some additional material or reference material. So the examiner is replicating a real life corporate environment. So in a real life environment, you will receive an email, and additional information will be shared with you via attachments. That's exactly what you can see in here. So these reference material are your attachments. So that's what you need to remember. So this is how your knowledge is tested. So you need to take something like 5 minutes of your time to read through the entire scenario. And there's a lot of information. If your reading speed is not up to par, then you will end up wasting time. So if your reading speed is not up to the required level or standard, then until your examination date, on a daily basis, dedicate 30 minutes to 1 hour of your time to read a newspaper or a blog article or a book or whatever, with the intention of improving your reading speed. Because the only way to improve your reading speed is to practice reading. And that's why I'm asking you to dedicate 30 to 60 minutes of your time on a daily basis in the upcoming 5 weeks to make sure that you read something continuously for 30 to 60 minutes. And if you do so, you are taking steps to improve your reading speed. Because if you cannot read the entire scenario within 5 to 7 minutes, then you will end up wasting a lot of time. Okay, so the first step of our answering technique is to read the scenario between 5 to 7 minutes. And after you have read through the scenario, then the second step is to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. So there are requirements which are shared with you, as you can see in here. The first requirement is explain the financial analyst's comments regarding the investment in data analytics technology to support the proposed SaaS business model. So this is a lengthy requirement. So when you have to, when you have access to a lengthy requirement, when it comes to developing the answer plan, the best approach to make sure that you gain a good understanding of the requirement is to simplify this. So before you develop the answer plan, take steps to simplify this requirement in your own words, in a concise manner, with 2 objectives in mind. Objective number 1 of simplifying the requirement is to gain a good understanding of the requirement. Because if you understand the requirement clearly, you are taking the first step towards developing an answer which is aligned with the requirement. Because most students at their exam, because of them misunderstanding the requirement, they end up developing an answer which is not aligned with the requirement. If so, you are not going to get any marks. So the first step should be to, the first objective of simplifying the requirement is to make sure that you gain a clear understanding of the requirement. And the second objective is to make sure that whilst developing the answer plan, when you have access to a simplified requirement, you can easily track whether you are developing an answer which is aligned with the requirement or not. So as I mentioned earlier, most students, they don't spend time to plan the answer. So because of that, halfway through the answer, they figure out that their answer is not aligned with the requirement. So because of that, they'd have to, delete the entire answer and start from scratch. So rather than doing that, whilst developing the answer plan, you can always refer back to a simplified requirement and see whether you are headed in the correct direction or not. So that's exactly why we have included this information within the answer plans as well. So the first requirement is to explain the financial analyst's comments regarding the investment in data analytics technology to support the proposed SaaS business model. I've simplified it as FA's comments, investing on data analytics technology. So you are simply supposed to evaluate the financial analyst's comments concerning investments which we intend to do focused on data analytics technology. And let's look at the second subtask. Evaluate the CEO's suggestion with regards to the bonus. So simply, I've simplified it as director's bonus. And the third subtask is to recommend comprehensive strategies for Leothayre to effectively manage stakeholder pressures created due to environmental issues. I've simplified it as strategies to manage stakeholder pressure. All right. So likewise, you can see that I've simplified each and every subtask or requirement in my own words with two objectives in mind. Number one is to gain clarity, gain a good understanding of the requirement. And number two is to make sure that I have access to a simplified requirement, which makes my life easy when it comes to checking whether I'm developing an answer plan which is aligned with the requirement. All right, so that's your second step. And then focus your attention towards developing headings and subheadings. So when it comes to headings and subheadings, headings should be in bold and underlined format, and subheadings should be in bold format. So that's exactly what you can see in here. As you can see, I've utilized a main heading, which is in bold and underlined format. And also I've utilized a subheading with the intention of further fractioning out my answer, which is in bold format. And when it comes to determining how many main headings you should have within your answer, focused on each subtask, you need to develop a main heading. So if you look at this paper, in section number 1, there are 3 subtasks. If so, in your answer, there should be 3 main headings. Okay. Similarly, in section number 2, again, there are 3 different subtasks. So focused on each subtask, you need to develop a main heading, which is in bold and underlined format. So in your answer concerning section number 2, there should be 3 main headings, which are in bold and underlined format. And within each subtask, if you want to further fraction out or divide your answer, then you are invited to use subheadings. And if you're utilizing subheadings, it should be in bold format. All right, so that's the third step, developing headings and subheadings. Once you have developed your headings and subheadings, then you should start developing the answer plan or planning out your answer or structuring your answer. And you can use a maximum of 30 minutes focused on all subtasks. So when developing the answer plan, you should develop the answer plan concerning all subtasks which appear within a section. So as per what I highlighted in this paper, each section carries 3 subtasks. So focused on covering all 3 subtasks, you need to develop an answer plan. And when developing this answer plan, you are supposed to dedicate 30 minutes of your time in total, because as you know, each section carries a time allocation of 60 minutes. Out of the 60 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes should be dedicated towards reading, and then 30 minutes should be dedicated towards developing your answer plan or structuring your answer. And when developing your answer plan, you need to understand how many points you need to include under each subtask. So the way to understand the number of points which you should include under each subtask is to look at the weightages provided. So as you can see in here, subtask A carries a weightage of 30%, subtask B carries a weightage of 20%, and subtask C carries a weightage of 50%. So 50 plus 20 is 70, 70 plus 30 comes up to 100 in total. So these weightages give us an indication of mark allocations. So as you know, each section carries a total mark allocation of 50 marks. So subtask A's mark allocation is 30% of 50 marks. subtask B's allocation is 20% of 50 marks, and subtask C's allocation is 50% of 50 marks. Okay, so that's exactly what you can see here. I've based on the weightages provided, I've determined the mark allocations as well. So 30% of 50 marks come up to 15 in total. 20% of 50 marks come up to 10 marks in total, and 50% of 25 or 50% of 50 marks come up to 25 marks in total. So based on the weightages, determine your mark allocations. Once you have understood the mark allocations, then you can determine how many points you need to include under each and every subtask. So each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So what you need to do is divide 15 by 2, which comes up to 7, and then divide 15 again by 3, which comes up to 5. So in order to score 15 marks, you need to come up with 5 to 7 valid points within your answer. And let's look at how you should tackle 10 marks. So divide 10 by 3, which comes up to something like 3, and divide 10 by 5. Divide 10 by 3, which comes up to something like 3 points, and divide 10 by 2, which comes up to 5. So if you come up with 3 to 5 valid points for the second subtask, then you will gain the full marks, which is 10 marks. And similarly, in order to score 25 marks, divide 25 by 3, which comes up to something like 8. And again, divide 25 by 12, which comes up to, divide 25 by 2 rather, which comes up to something like 12. So if you come up with 8 to 12 valid points, then you are poised to get full marks. So that's how we are supposed to determine how many points you need to include under each subtask. When you do so, when you stick to this methodology, you are taking steps to ensure that you are developing an answer which is 100% aligned with mark allocations. Therefore, you will not develop an answer which is too long or too short. Instead, your answer will be precisely aligned with the mark allocations. So these weightages, based on these weightages, determine mark allocations and divide the marks dedicated for each subtask by 2 and 3, and then determine how many points you need to include. And if you mention the same number of points, then you will get full marks for each and every subtask. All right, so that's how we are supposed to determine mark allocations. After you have determined your mark allocations, then focus your attention towards developing the answer plan. And when developing the answer plan, do it on the answer screen itself. Do not develop the answer plan on the scratch pad. Why am I asking you to do this? Because you will operate in a stressful situation. You are supposed to operate in a time pressured environment. When doing so, when you are stressed, when you have to shift between your answer screen and the scratch pad, it will lead to unnecessary complexities. So I want you to avoid all types of complexities at your examination. So when developing the answer, develop it on the answer screen with the intention of avoiding unnecessary complexities. And on top of that, let's assume that you develop the answer plan on the scratch pad, and you included 10 valid points. So when you were planning out your answer, you intended to include 10 valid points for subtask A. However, in your final answer, which is in paragraph form, you can see only 9 points being covered, or 9 different paragraphs. So this is a problem, because when you have intended to include 10 points, but in your final answer, when there's just 9 points, then you end up losing marks. Why will you end up losing marks? Because the fact that you are shifting between 2 screens. When shifting between 2 screens, when you have planned to include 10 points, you might miss out on a certain point which you have highlighted or included within your scratch pad. So in order to avoid all these issues, simply develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. Then when it comes to finalizing your answer, it's simply a matter of expanding each answer point. Then you can clearly see whether you have covered all the points which you intended to include when developing the answer plan when it comes to expanding your answer in paragraph form. So develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. So in order to do these things, you are supposed to dedicate 30 minutes of your time on a section by section basis. Although I'm asking you to develop an answer plan within 30 minutes, when you're doing it for the first time, definitely are going to take 45 to 50 minutes. I want you to face these type of problems because as I mentioned earlier, if you face these problems when conducting preparations, you have enough time to take steps to overcome these issues. If so, you will have the capability of developing an answer plan within just 30 minutes at your real examination. So it's essential that you practice. Just learning this technique won't help. You have to practice, practice, and practice. That's why we have developed an exam platform, which is the replica of the Pearson system, which gives you the opportunity to master the answering and time management techniques. And if you master these two techniques, you will gain extremely good results at your upcoming SCS exam. And once you have developed the answer plan, then your next step should be, your final step should be to expand the answer plan in paragraph form. So per point which you have included in your answer plan, you need to develop a paragraph. So for instance, let's assume that you intended to include 7 points within a certain subtask, or you included 7 different points in your answer plan. Then in your final answer, there should be 7 different paragraphs. So per answer point, you need to develop a paragraph. So that's exactly what you can see here. The answer plan looks like this, but the final answer should be in paragraph form. You can see that I've not written everything together. Instead, I've utilized different paragraphs with the intention of making sure that we adhere to the techniques highlighted by the examiner. So the examiner wants you to come up with various different paragraphs with the prime objective of assisting the marker. So it's, if you want to be in the good books of the marker, then stick to this technique, because if you write the entire answer in one single paragraph, what happens is the marker will spend some additional time to figure out how many points you have included in your answer. And this leads to stress. And when the marker has a negative attitude towards your paper, you might end up losing some marks. On the other hand, if you're in the good books of the marker, if you want to be in the good books of your marker, it's essential that you faction out your paragraphs. So based on the answer points which you have included or plan to include within each subtask. So if there are 7 valid points which you included in an answer plan, then in your final answer, there should be 7 different paragraphs. Then the examiner can easily count and see how many points you have included. And out of these points, the examiner can easily determine how many are accurate and how many are inaccurate. And based on it, the marker can easily give you marks. When this is the case, let's assume you achieve something like 78 marks, you are short by just 2 marks. If you're in the good books of the marker will definitely give you the additional 2 marks with the intention of passing you. Right? So it's essential that you are in the good books of the marker. So stick to this technique. And when finalizing your answer, expand your answer points in paragraph form. And, if there were 10 valid points which you intended to include, then in your final answer, there should be 10 different paragraphs. Okay, so that's your answering technique. And talking further about the answering technique, I mentioned the fact that you are supposed to utilize headings and subheadings. So for each subtask, utilize a heading which is in bold and underlined format. And if you want to further faction out your answer, utilize subheadings which should be in bold format. And your typing speed should be 20 words per minute. If you're falling behind, then again, just like what I said pertaining to improving your reading speed, you need to take steps to practice your typing speed as well. So there's a lot of resources out there online which helps you to improve your typing speed. So on a daily basis, if you figure out that you are not capable of typing 20 words per minute, then take steps to dedicate 30 minutes of your time on a daily basis until your examination to practice your typing speed. So you can utilize various online platforms to improve your typing speed, or simply, purchase a newspaper and start typing what appears on the newspaper on a weekly basis, or on a daily basis rather, by dedicating 30 minutes of your time. Because the only way to improve your typing speed is to practice typing. Because if your typing speed is not up to par, then you will end up wasting a lot of time, and you will definitely run out of time at your real examination. And I said that your final answer should be in paragraph form, and each paragraph should carry 2 to 4 line sentences. That's exactly what you can see here. These are short paragraphs. These are not lengthy paragraphs. And then do not spend time on formatting, such as paragraph alignment. The only type of formatting which you have to be conversant with is with regards to headings and subheadings, and developing a paragraph per answer point. And at your exam and when conducting your preparations, your focus should be on achieving quality, not quantity. So that is why at TCS we are not talking in terms of a word limit or a word count. Instead, we are talking in terms of answer points. So it all comes down to the quality of your answer. Just because you provide lengthy answers, you are not going to get any marks, because at office, is your boss going to read through your response and count the number of words? Or is your boss trying to, will your boss try to figure out the quality of your response? Your boss is always going to pick quality over quantity. So at the examination, the marker is not going to be interested to know how lengthy your answer is, because it makes absolutely no sense to count the number of words. This is not an academic qualification. This is a professional qualification. So in a real life corporate environment, since your manager or your superior is not interested in the word count, the marker is not interested in your word count as well. So that's why you need to take steps to master the answer planning technique, which I taught you a while back. Because if you master the answering technique, then you are taking steps to structure your answer properly. You are taking steps to plan out your answer. You are trying to come up with a logical answer. You are trying to figure out what type of theoretical elements should be brought in, how to work on your application. When you cover all these elements, when it comes to planning your answer, then you will come up with a high quality answer at your real examination. So this is your answering technique. And having said that, before I take you to the mock exam discussion, let me quickly tell you how your exam platform is structured, the technicalities behind it. Because when getting in touch with some students, some of you said that you were struggling with the exam platform. You were clueless of whether you can go back to the question or not, whether you what you need to do if you want to go to the next section. So that's why I intend to explain how your exam platform works. So as I mentioned earlier, we have developed the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system on which you'd attempt your real examination. And these screenshots were taken from TCS's exam platform. Okay, so when you start your examination, you will see this type of a page which gives an indication of the number of sections, the time allocation, and at the same time, the number of subtasks along with the weightages. So once you click on the begin button, you will be directed to section number 1 of your paper. So I've taken these screenshots from SCS Mock 1. So we are in section number 1, and towards the extreme right, you'd see a timer which runs down from 60 minutes. And also you'd see the section number. We are in section number 1 out of 3 sections in total. And you will see various different buttons in here as well. So there's a calculator button. At this exam, you are not supposed to do major calculations. Instead, you might have to rework a gearing ratio. Other than that, you are not expected to do any calculations. So you have access to a basic calculator once you click on this button. And you have access to a scratch pad as well. So when you are reading through this scenario, if you want to jot down something, you can do it on your scratch pad. And then you'd see a reference material button as well. So this reference material, as I mentioned earlier, via this reference material button, you'd gain access to additional information. And on top of that, you have access to your pre-seen document as well. So if you want to check some information, you can easily do it by gaining access to your pre-seen whilst attempting your examination. So the scenarios information will be shared with you. And once you click on the next button, you will be directed to, before talking about the next button, so once you click on the reference material, a pop-up will appear to your right with the information, the additional information which is shared with you. And once you click on next, you will be directed to the answer screen. So your answer screen looks like this. I said that you are supposed to develop the answer plan on the answer screen. I asked you not to utilize a scratch pad because a scratch pad results in a totally new pop-up. So when developing your answer, do it on the answer screen itself. because then when it comes to expanding your answer in paragraph form, it makes your life easy. You won't miss out on any points which you intended to include in your answer. All right. And when you're on the answer screen, you have access to the reference material, the pre-seen, as well as the information shared with you via each section. So once you click on the reference material, as you can see, we are on the answer screen. Once you click on the reference material, you will gain access to the reference material via a pop-up onto the right of your screen. So whilst developing the answer plan, you can always refer to the reference materials information to see whether you are considering all the information appropriately. Similarly, you'd gain access to the pre-seen document by clicking on the pre-seen button. You have access to your pre-seen. Also, you'll see a different tab in here, which reads as task. Once you click on this task tab, you gain access to the scenarios information. So all information concerning your scenario, reference material, and the pre-seen appears to the right of your screen as a pop-up. So when you are developing the answer plan, you are simply structuring your answer. When structuring the answer, you can always refer to the necessary information and see whether to make sure that you are developing an answer which is aligned with the requirement, aligned with the scenario, aligned with what's shared with you via the reference material. Okay, so this is how your exam platform functions. And if you want to complete the requirement before the dedicated time, which is 60 minutes, you can click on the submit answer button. Once you have clicked on the submit answer button, you see a pop-up like this, asking you to confirm whether you want to move to the next section or not. Once you have clicked on yes, then you'd be directed to section number 2. When you are in section number 2, again, you'd see the timer running out from 60 minutes. We are in section 2. The section number can be seen in here, and you'd have access to the same type of buttons. As you can see, there is no previous button in here. When you are in section number 2, there is no previous button, which indicates the fact that you cannot go back to section number 1. So when you are in section number 1, for instance, you have a previous button, and when you click on the previous button, it will take you to the scenarios information. Okay, but when you are in section number 2, there is no previous button, which shows that you cannot go back to section number 1. So when it comes to managing your time, you need to think about 3 different slots carrying 60 minutes of time each, rather than coming up with a time management plan which spans across 180 minutes or 3 hours. So you need to plan in terms of each section rather than planning in terms of managing 3 hours of your time. So this is how your exam works. I just wanted to highlight how your platform works so that you are conversant with the technicalities, and we have given access to this same platform if you opt for paid and free content. And when attempting each mock exam, you will gain a better grasp of the technicalities behind your exam platform. Therefore, you will not struggle at your real examination when navigating this exam platform. All right, so having said that, before we move on to the mock exam discussion, in which I'm going to explain how to practically implement the answering and time management techniques which I taught you a while back, let me quickly tell you what we offer at TCS. So I'm on the SCS page. If you are yet to create a free user account, click on this button and create a free user account. Once you have done so, you'd gain access to our student dashboard. So click on my courses, and in front of SCS free, you'd see an access content button. Click on it. Once you have clicked on it, you'd gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops we conduct. Then under the study material tab, you'd gain access to the SCS pre-seen mind map and the syllabus coverage document. And additionally, you'd gain access to the answer plan of mock exam 1, which based on which I'm going to conduct the explanation in a little while. And via the mocks tab, you'd gain access to the questions and answers of SCS mock exam 1. And via the exams tab, you will gain access to our exam platform, on which you can attempt SCS mock exam 1 under exam conditions in its entirety. So after learning answering and time management techniques, I expect you to practice your answering and time management techniques. And the best way to practice these techniques and see what type of shortcomings or hiccups you encounter is by attempting a mock exam under exam conditions. So even under the free content, we have given you access to our exam platform on which you can attempt SCS Mock 1. All right, so make use of the free resources on offer. And if you want to invest on our paid content, check our sample material before you do so. And if you are yet to join our SCS WhatsApp discussion forum, click on this button and join it. Via this group, you'd gain access to the information concerning the weekly webinar and workshop commencement dates and times. And additionally, we are sharing hordes of free resources with you via this WhatsApp group. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can get them answered or addressed instantaneously. So if you're yet to join this group, please do so by clicking on this button. And talking about what we offer two packages, the essential course and the premium course. So the essential course is designed for those who are coming through the CIMA general route or those who have completed their OTQ exams. Since you have completed your OTQs, you are already conversant with theories. It's simply a matter of refining your application skills. So under the essentials course, you'd gain access to the recordings of all weekly webinars and workshops, 6 mock exams and suggested answers. So we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas across the mock exams, which we have developed focused on your examination. As I mentioned earlier, you have to be conversant with 65 to 70 subtasks to cover the entire syllabus. So that's exactly what we have achieved via these mock exams we have developed. And also you'd gain access to the pre-scene analysis videos, 4 videos in total. Once you have watched these videos, you'd gain an in-depth understanding of what appears within the pre-scene. So you need not try and figure out pre-scene info. We have covered it for you. And also you'd gain access to the annotated pre-scene, the industry analysis and financial analysis slides. So let me quickly show you what these documents look like. So this is the annotated pre-scene. So we have come up with annotations with the intention of summarizing the entire pre-scene, which makes your life easy when it comes to decrypting pre-scene info. And at the same time, we have also mentioned the probable exam scenarios which can be tested, and tied to these probable exam scenarios, we have highlighted the type of syllabus areas which can be tested as well. And when developing the mock exams, we have made sure to cover all these elements. So on top of that, you'd gain access to an industry analysis a set of slides as well. So this is divided into 4 main parts. In the first part, we have defined your industry. In the second part, we have explained about the competitive landscape. And in the third, we have explained industry trends. Mind you, at your exam, based on these industry trends, scenarios can be thrown at you. And at the very end, we have considered a real-life company, thereby explaining how a real-life company operates within your chosen industry. And then you'd also gain access to the financial analysis slides. So towards the very end of your pre-scene, you would have seen the financial statements of your own company and its closest competitor. So we have evaluated each financial statement in depth, yet making sure to keep things simple so that you can easily understand what appears within each financial statement. So we have evaluated the SOPL, the SOFP, and the statement of changes in equity. And we have also conducted a ratio analysis at the end, thereby comparing your company's performance against your closest competitors to make sure that you gain a good understanding about the financial standing of your chosen company. So all these resources are included under the essential course. You'd also gain access to top 20 likely issue slides, which indicate the most probable scenarios which can be tested at the exam. You will gain access to a case study familiarization kit. Once you have access to this document, within 10 to 15 minutes, you will gain a sound understanding of the technicalities behind your SCS exam. You will gain access to a tutor-managed live chat and OTQ revision cards. So after attempting each mock exam, if you feel that you cannot forget, you cannot remember a certain syllabus area, or you need to brush up your knowledge, simply refer to the OTQ revision cards so that you're not wasting time by having to go through bulky study texts, your old study notes and whatnot. Simply refer to the OTQ revision cards to brush up your knowledge in a jiffy. So the essential course is priced at £299. And talking about the premium course, the premium course is designed for those who are coming through the exemption route, as well as those who had failed the SCS exam previously. So both these sets of students have the same problem. there are gaps in theory knowledge and issues with application. So with the intention of teaching you all syllabus areas and with the intention of teaching you application, we have included some additional resources and included them under the premium course on top of what you'd gain access to under the essential course. So you'd gain access to the online mock exam platform on which you can attempt all mock exams under exam conditions, which is the best way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. You will receive one-on-one tutor feedback on 2 mock exams, namely mocks 3 and 5. Let me quickly show you the type of feedback on offer. So as you can see, we have evaluated each and every paragraph, each and every point in depth, thereby highlighting the shortcomings, because the objective of opting for tutor feedback should be to understand your shortcomings, because when you understand your shortcomings, you can take steps to overcome them when conducting revision. So you can see the type of feedback on offer at TCS. We take about 3 hours to mark one answer script because our objective is to make sure that you really understand what your shortcomings are. And at the very end, we provide mark allocations on a subtask by subtask basis. Not just marks, we are also indicating the success rate. By looking at the yellow highlighted areas, you can easily understand the subtasks in which your performance was substandard. So although this student has failed each of the subtasks, thereby gaining just 24 marks, at the real exam, this student ended up scoring 96 marks. So you will definitely, you might fail your mock exams. That's quite all right. Our mock exams are tough. When, receiving tutor feedback, sometimes you might feel demotivated by looking at the tutor feedback as well as the number of marks we should, receive. But don't get demotivated. We are being honest when providing feedback with the intention of making sure that you understand your shortcomings. And when conducting revision, your job is to redevelop answer plans focused on the subtasks which are highlighted in yellow, thereby focusing your attention towards overcoming your shortcomings, improving your skill set. Because if you improve your skill set, then you will definitely pass this examination. All right, so that's the type of feedback on offer. And you'd also gain access to the answer plans of all mock exams which we have developed. So you will see what an answer plan looks like. So, having access to these answer plans helps you with your revision, because as I mentioned earlier, you are supposed to redevelop answer plans after each mock attempt. When you have redeveloped the answer plan, you are supposed to compare your fresh answer plan to TCS's to figure out whether you still have shortcomings, whether you have missed out on certain points, whether you have included unnecessary points and or whatnot. So on a continuous basis, keep redeveloping answer plans over and over until you are satisfied about the fact that you are capable of replicating answer plans which are provided by TCS. You'd also gain access to 15 master classes. So we have developed these master classes with 3 objectives in mind. Objective number 1 is to take you through the logic of each answer. Objective number 2 is to teach you the theoretical concept covered within each section of our mock exams. And objective number 3 is to, whilst teaching you theory, explain application. So if you have knowledge gaps and issues with application, simply gain access to these master classes. Then you will learn theory and application in one single instance, which is the best way to improve your knowledge levels and application skills. So the premium course is priced at £849, which can be paid in 2 monthly installments of £424 each, or you can opt to pay in full. If so, you will save £100. Therefore, the price will be just £749. So you can invest on your preferred course by clicking on each of these buttons. Having said that, let me quickly take you to the SCS study plan as well to explain what you need to achieve within this week. So this is only applicable to you if you had already, adhered to this study plan, because as per the original 8-week study plan, we are in week number 3. And within this week, this is the most hectic week according to our 8-week study plan, because in all the other weeks, you are supposed to dedicate just 8 to 9 hours of study time. But within this week, you are supposed to dedicate 12 hours of study time. Why? Because in this week, you are supposed to attempt 2 mock exams. So attempt mock number 1 via the exam platform. You will struggle a lot with the answering technique. You will run out of time. You will experience stress. You will experience fatigue and brain freeze. I want you to face these things so that you know how serious this examination is. Once you are done with mock exam 1, attempt mock 2 via the exam platform, thereby practicing your answering and time management techniques. After you have attempted mock number 2, watch the 3 master classes which are developed focused on each section of mock exam 2. By watching these master classes, you will understand the logic behind each answer. You will understand how each theoretical area can be tested, and you'd understand, or improve your application knowledge as well. So once you have learned your theories and application, then test for yourself whether you have gained something via the master classes by redeveloping answer plans. So this is your revision. So that's why I said there's absolutely no point of just attempting mock exams and watching master classes. You should test and see whether you have gained something via the master classes. You have to test and see whether you are capable of developing answer plans in the most successful manner. So with that in mind, you have to conduct revision, which should be to redevelop answer plans. So this is the 3-step process which I highlighted. So once you're done with the first 2 mock exams from week 4 onwards, you are supposed to simply dedicate your attention towards one single mock exam per week. So the 3-step process is to attempt the mock exam. Step number 2 is to watch the master classes to learn theory and improve application. Step number 3 is to conduct revision by redeveloping answer plans. And if you're not satisfied, redevelop answer plans once more. Keep redeveloping until you are fully aware of the fact that you are capable of replicating TCS's answer plans on your own. Okay, so once you have mastered one single mock, then move on to the next week in which you are supposed to attempt your next mock exam. So within this week, things are hectic. So, you have to take steps to attempt 2 mock exams, watch master classes and redevelop answer plans, then move on to mock exam 3 in week number 4. All right, so if you are yet to start preparations, don't worry. As I mentioned earlier, I will share a study plan with you, a 5-week study plan with you via the group, so that you know what you need to achieve, how much time you need to dedicate on a weekly basis in order to excel at your upcoming examination. All right, so that's what we offer. Having said that, let's move on to the mock exam discussion. Before I move on to this, some questions had come through via the chat, so I'm going to pause the recording, address them, and then move forward. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, folks, so thank you very much for those questions. I hope I addressed everything. And if you still have questions, some additional questions, drop me a message. I will address them during the Q&A. So let me reiterate the answering technique. You have to start your answering technique by reading the scenario, which thereby taking 5 to 7 minutes of your time. So I'm going to take you through section number 1 of mock exam 1. I'm not going to take you through the entire section. Instead, I'm simply going to direct your attention towards subtask C. Subtask C. So this question highlights diversification and the type of industry pressures which we are encountering at the moment. So the first 2 subtasks are tied to us pursuing a SaaS business model. I explained it in last week's pre-scene analysis as well. If you missed out on the pre-scene analysis, please go watch the recorded version. So the first part is about diversification, and the last subtask is about some type of industry pressures which we are experiencing. On an unrelated matter, I'm sharing an article which was published on Wexler News. Please refer to the attachment. So let's look at what appears within the attachment. So this is an article taken from Wexler News. So there's a lot of information in here. Given that we are running out of time, I'm not going to take you through all the information. Simply, I've highlighted the most important info. So this is about our industry harming the environment, especially the orbit. So due to our industry, the world is facing a space debris problem. And, when we are sending our satellites, as I mentioned in the pre-scene analysis webinar, when conducting an industry analysis, I highlighted these things. So when sending our satellites, we have to rely on rockets, and these rockets, emit a lot of carbon emissions, fumes and whatnot, which had led to upper atmosphere pollution. And the Wexland Environmental Forum had highlighted the fact that the industry is contributing immensely towards greenhouse gas emissions as well as soot. And on top of that, they are also saying that we are, since we are relying on rockets, these rockets are emitting toxic fuel and failing components, because when the rocket is coming back, it disintegrates into small fragments. So all these problems are created due to the fact in the way in which we conduct our business. And this had led to the space debris problem as well. And activist movements are, working against this industry. They are being vocal and they are asking players within this industry to be accountable in satellite design, invest on end-of-life planning and better propulsion technologies. And the governments are interested as well. That's why they have the Wexland government has signed the Space Junk Charter. This is not a law, but a regulation. So this is voluntary, falling in line with the Space Junk Charter is voluntary. However, this might become a law in the future as well. That's a probable area which can be tested, a probable scenario which can be tested at your exam. And in an overall sense, governments, the public, and ESG-focused investors are concerned about our emissions and how we pollute the environment. So this is about some various different stakeholders who are working against our industry. So that's the information presented. You are supposed to recommend comprehensive strategies for Leothayre to effectively manage stakeholder pressures created due to environmental issues. So we are done with the first part. You are supposed to read the scenario within 5 minutes. Once you're done with it, then your next step is to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. So I've simplified this requirement as, you can see it in here. I've simplified the requirement as strategies to manage stakeholder pressure. So you are supposed to recommend comprehensive strategies for Leothayre to effectively manage stakeholder pressure created due to environmental issues. So I've simplified it as strategies to manage stakeholder pressure. Then you should focus your attention towards developing headings and subheadings. So I've come up with a main heading which goes as managing stakeholders. Yes, managing stakeholders, as you can see here, which is in bold and underlined format. And based on the weightage provided, you are supposed to determine the mark allocations next. So 50% of 50 marks come up to 25 marks in total. So then you have to divide 25 by 3, which comes up to something like 8. Then you have to divide 25 by 2, which comes up to something like 12. So if you come up with 8 to 12 valid points, 9 to 12 valid points rather, you will get full marks for this question. So based on the weightage, determine mark allocations. Based on the mark allocations, determine how many points you need to include in your answer. All right, so let's look at how you should structure your answer. So we are in the 4th step, which is to develop the answer plan. And when doing so, first things first, you need to look at mark allocation. So I explained how to do so. So let's try to understand how you should structure your answer. So as you have learned via your E3 syllabus, when it comes to managing stakeholders, you are supposed to utilize the Mendelow's matrix. Okay, so that's exactly what you can see here. When utilizing the Mendelow's matrix, our objective is to, before managing stakeholders, categorize them into quadrants. So when we are categorizing them into quadrants, we are looking at 2 main elements: the level of power of each stakeholder or stakeholder group, as well as the level of interest. So some stakeholders, they have a high level of power, whereas some stakeholders have just a low level of power. And looking at the level of interest, similarly, some stakeholders have a high level of interest and some stakeholders have a low level of interest. So considering these 4 elements, we categorize stakeholders into quadrants. And after categorizing, we are supposed to take appropriate or suggest appropriate mitigatory action. So when dealing with the type of stakeholders who show a low level of interest concerning this space debris problem, and concerning the stakeholders who have a low level of power over our company, or over our industry, we need not really worry about them. So the strategy is to exert a minimal effort. So these guys are really not interested. They are not powerful as well. So we need not actually be worried about these stakeholders. So we should not react just because one single stakeholder does something. Instead, we have to exert minimal effort. On the other hand, if you look at the type of stakeholders who have a high level of interest and high level of power, they are considered as key players. Why are they key players? Because they can influence our company because of their high power levels. And at the same time, since they are highly interested, they will always take steps which will change the internal dynamics of our company, as well as change what happens within this industry. So these type of stakeholders are known as key players. We have to always satisfy them, always listen to them, and always take steps to fall in line with what these key players are asking us to do. And looking at another set of stakeholders, these are the stakeholders who have a high level of power, yet a low level of interest. So these stakeholders are powerful, but their level of interest is low. So with the intention of ensuring that their level of interest remains low, because if their level of interest increases, they will become key players. Then we'd have to always fall in line with the requirements of these type of stakeholders. So in order to make sure that their level of interest remains low, we have to keep them satisfied. So as and when necessary, we have to ask these stakeholders, get their opinion about the way in which we operate within this industry. And therefore, we have to take steps to fall in line as and when necessary. So the best option out there is to keep them satisfied, or else if they become key players, we will have to change our internal dynamics. Okay. And another set of the last set of stakeholders are those who have a low level of power but a high level of interest. So these type of stakeholders will be extremely vocal, irrespective of the fact that they have a low level of power. So with the intention of managing these type of stakeholders, we have to always keep them informed. So we have to implement an appropriate communication strategy rather than trying to change our internal dynamics, rather than trying to satisfy these stakeholders. Simply communicating with these stakeholders will do, because they have a low level of power. So why should we keep these guys informed? Why should we communicate with these stakeholders? Because although individually the level of power is low, if these type of stakeholders get together, their power will increase. If so, they might become key players. So in order to avoid a situation where these, all these small or powerless stakeholders, come together, thereby improving their level of power. In order to avoid such a situation, we have to always keep them informed. If not, they will come into wrong conclusions. These type of stakeholders, since they are always interested in how we operate, they will, if someone misdirects them or feeds them with inaccurate information, they will be up in arms. So in order to avoid such a situation, always we have to keep these individuals informed. Thereby, always we have to, even when there is no problem, we have to communicate with these stakeholders to make sure that their level of power remains low. So that's how we are supposed to manage each type of stakeholder group concerning the Mendelow's matrix. So that's the theoretical element which is covered within this mock exam. So then, now that we have learned your theory, now let's understand how you should work on your application. Because explaining, I just I just carried out an explanation. So explaining what I said in your answer won't help, because your CFO or some other board member is not interested to understand what a keep informed strategy is, what type of key players or whom we should consider as key players, who we should keep satisfied, and what minimal effort is. All these things are totally unnecessary and irrelevant to your CFO. So your job is to make sure that you utilize this theoretical concept when developing the answer, but you have to do it in a practical sense. So let's look at how you should utilize the Mendelow's matrix when developing the answer. So first thing first, since this question is about managing stakeholders, you have to identify in order to manage main stakeholders. So when it comes to identifying stakeholders, we have to categorize them into quadrants. So I've identified different types of stakeholders. There's a mention about environmental advocacy groups within this reference material. So there's a Wexland Environmental Forum. There are activist movements as well. So these are the type of environmental advocacy groups which I've identified. And also there's a mention about the Space Junk Charter. Governments are responding through voluntary efforts like the Space Junk Charter. So the government is involved with this industry. So government and regulators are another key stakeholder which I've understood. And then there's a mention about ESG focused investors who are asking us to change the way in which we operate. So investors and shareholders are considered as a major stakeholder as well. And there are ESG focused clients. Some clients are asking to change the way in which we conduct our business. So companies that do not act may face reputational damage, divestments, and loss of customers. So we might end up losing some ESG focused customers if we don't fall in line. So I've considered clients as well as a major stakeholder. And there's a mention about general public and media. So I've considered this element as well. Okay, so I've identified the various different stakeholders. Now let's try to understand how we should come up with appropriate strategies to manage each type of stakeholders. And when doing so, as I mentioned earlier, as the Mendelow's matrix, when managing each type of stakeholder, we have to think in terms of the level of interest and the level of power. So first things first, let's direct our attention towards environmental advocacy groups. So as per the news article, these advocacy groups carry a high level of interest. However, these are various different organizations. So there are activists, and as well as this one single entity which is known as the Wexland Environmental Forum, which are lobbying the government, which are actually trying to force the government to impose better regulation. These players are trying to force players within this industry to uphold sustainability. So these environmental advocacy groups, although they have a high level of interest, that's why their names and their information appears within the news article. Although there's a high level of interest, the level of power is low because individually they hold an extremely low level of power compared to the other stakeholders, which I've considered in here, compared to the government, compared to the investors, and compared to our clients. These stakeholders, the environmental advocacy groups, carry a low level of power. So when dealing with these type of stakeholders who carry a high level of interest but a low level of power, as I mentioned earlier, you have to keep them informed as much as possible. All right. So as I mentioned when explaining the Mendelow's matrix, although their level of power is low at the moment, they can harness the power of the regulators and government, or as per what's highlighted within this news article, they are actually pressurizing the government to pass better laws. So when this is the case, although their level of power is low, if we don't address their needs, if we don't keep them informed, they will become key players. So we have to prevent them from becoming key players. That's why we should engage with them, thereby conducting a communication strategy. So when we are engaging with them, there's no point of negotiating directly with these individuals. Why? They have a low level of power. They are not key players. If they are key players, yes, we should negotiate with them directly. However, these are not key players. So because of that, there's no point of negotiating with them directly, because engaging with these parties may be perceived as damage control, may be perceived as the fact that what they're saying is true. Because of that, we are trying to negotiate with them. So rather than creating this type of a picture within this industry, instead, in order to keep these guys informed, we can use media, thereby coming up with our own narrative about the problem. So don't engage with these parties directly. Instead, utilize media, do some press releases, press briefings, and on our website, keep these people informed about what we do, and that is necessary to keep these guys informed. So that's how we should manage environmental advocacy groups. Then directing our attention towards the government and regulators. Usually, governments and regulators fall in the category of keep satisfied. The government has a high level of power, but their level of interest on the business environment is extremely low. But as per this news article, the government is interested about the players within this industry. That is why they have passed the Space Junk Charter. So the government had become a key player in this instance. Their level of interest had increased. That's why they have passed the Space Junk Charter. So as key players, let's try to figure out how we should manage affairs with the government and regulators. They have a high level of power and a high level of interest. And as I mentioned earlier, their level of interest is usually low, but in this instance, it's high. That's why they have introduced the Space Junk Charter. So when dealing with key players, what should we do? We should engage directly. So I said that when dealing with stakeholders who carry a low level of power, we should not negotiate or engage directly. But when dealing with stakeholders which carry a high level of power, we should engage with them directly. And how are we supposed to engage with a government? Either by carrying out lobbying initiatives or either by carrying out bridging activities. Both these strategies fall under CPA or corporate political activity. So let's look at lobbying first. When carrying out lobbying, we are trying to influence the government on our behalf. When doing so, we have to explain the adverse impacts of the new laws on not just us, but other stakeholders as well. We have to highlight the fact that we are trying to save livelihoods of employees and trying to save the investments of our shareholders or look after the investments of our shareholders. Because if this Space Junk Charter becomes law, we have to fall in line with these regulations. And when trying to fall in line with these regulations, we will have to go for additional investments because we will have to change our internal dynamics. And these additional investments will eat up our bottom line. And this will dissatisfy our investors. And when the investors are dissatisfied, we might have to face financial burdens in the future. And if so, we might have to, sell off or divest parts of our business. When this is the case, the livelihoods of our employees will be impacted. So these things should be explained to the government when carrying out lobbying initiatives. Alternatively, we can go for a bridging strategy as well. Bridging is a situation where when we know for a fact that a rule is going to come into play before, rather than waiting until the law comes into play, we take steps to change our internal dynamics right now so that we are falling in line with the regulatory changes which are going to take place in the future. So if we go for a bridging strategy, we have to change our internal dynamics if needed to fall in line with changing laws. So we have two options at our disposal. I've mentioned both. It's up to the board to decide which option which we should take, which option we should take. And looking at investors and shareholders, they have definitely investors and shareholders have a high level of power and their level of interest is high as well. And as per the Menlo matrix, they are concerned as key players. So we have to always listen to them and engage with these key players directly, especially the type of investors who have ESG interests or environmental interests will be extremely interested to know how we are trying to fall in line with the Space Junk Charter, how we conduct business within this type of an industry. So we have to take steps to reassure these stakeholders, the investors and shareholders. Thereby, we have to launch a measurable environmental program. So as I mentioned in last week's pre-scene analysis, there's no mention about sustainability. We don't believe in sustainability. We don't think about environmental concerns. There's no mention about it within our vision, mission, and values. There's no separate board committee which looks into these affairs. There's no one who comes from this type of a background. There's one non-executive director. Other than that, everybody else is not really conversant with the environmental concerns or sustainability. So with that in mind, since these are key players, we have to change our internal dynamics. So with this in mind, we have to launch a measurable environmental program. So we have to come up with carbon emission reduction targets. We have to, when designing our satellites, ensure that it does not contribute to the space debris problem. And we have to improve deorbiting technology. And at the same time, we have to work with rocket manufacturers, launching partners to see whether they are investing on better deorbiting technology as well, as and when necessary. We have to help them out as well. And we have to set strong KPIs to see whether we are falling in line with the needs of the environmental program. We have to go for integrated reporting, because if we opt for integrated reporting, then we are not only reporting in terms of the financial situation of our company, we are looking at non-financial performance measures. We are reporting concerning non-financial performance of our company. And also, it's best that we establish a separate sustainability committee, because as I mentioned earlier, none of the directors are spearheading sustainability initiatives. So with this, because of this problem, in order to fix this problem, we can appoint a sustainability committee. This should be chaired by Professor Alice. Why am I saying this? Let's go to the pre-scene to see the logic behind this recommendation. So that is where your pre-scene related knowledge comes into play. So I'm not simply saying that we should set up a sustainability committee. Instead, I'm saying that, okay, we have to appoint this individual as the head of the sustainability committee. So why am I saying that Alice should be appointed as the head of this committee? Because she comes from a career in academia, and her research interests included environmental studies. Okay, so this person is the only person who is conversant with the environmental elements. So because of that, when we are setting up an environmental committee or a sustainability committee, this is the ideal person to become the leader of this committee. So that's why I've said that we should appoint Alice as the head. And when looking at the composition of the sustainability committee, majority should be independent non-executive directors. So I'm not simply mentioning the fact that we should appoint a sustainability committee. I'm talking about the leader and its composition. And I've also highlighted the responsibility. The responsibility of this committee should be to develop and deliver this sustainability strategy. So all these things can be utilized to reassure our investors and shareholders about the fact that we are serious about their concerns. Therefore, we are taking steps to change our internal dynamics. And dealing with clients, definitely each client carries a high level of power, but their interest varies concerning the environmental concerns, because some of the clients will be really interested in sustainability, and some will only think in terms of how fast and efficiently we provide our services. So we have to offer eco-compliant satellite missions focused on the type of clients who are interested in ESG elements. And we have to consult existing clients to understand their ESG needs as well, because then we can identify what their needs are. When we have identified their needs, then we can design and manufacture satellites which fall in line with the needs of these ESG related needs of these clients. And we have to think about the general public and media as well, because this appears in Wexler News. So the media is talking about our industry. So these stakeholders, various different stakeholders who form the general public and media, they have a high level of interest, but their level of power is low. And additionally, their level of power is indirect. They cannot really influence people directly, influence the government, our clients, our shareholders, our employees and whatnot directly. Instead, their power is indirect. So although their power is indirect, their opinion can shape the behavior of powerful stakeholders such as our investors, the government. So because of that, we have to manage them by publishing a sustainability report, thereby keeping these guys informed, because their level of power is low, although their level of interest is high. So we are trying to keep them informed via this sustainability report. And in this report, we have to include information about how we contribute towards responsible space usage. We have to share statistics about debris-free missions which we have carried out, and the type of steps which we have taken to minimize our emission levels as well. So these are the stakeholders. based on the level of interest and power. I've categorized them. Based on the categorization, I've understood how we should manage them. Then I've come up with practical recommendations to manage affairs with each and every stakeholder group. So my general recommendation is to conduct an internal investigation to see whether what's highlighted within this news article is factual or not. And if we figure out that the news article is factual, because the media is not always telling the truth, so in order to get to the bottom of things, we have to conduct an internal investigation. And if we figure out that what appears within this news article is accurate, then we have to accept fault publicly. That's the right thing to do. Initially, there will be some type of a pushback from the general public, from our investors. However, when our investors, our major stakeholders, when our major stakeholders know for a fact that we are honest and truthful, when they know for a fact that we are, practicing one of our values, which is based on integrity, then this leads to better stakeholder confidence in the future. And also, just accepting our fault won't help. We have to commit to corrective action as well. So as you can see in this answer, I've utilized a theoretical concept, but I've never explained the theoretical concept. Instead, I've simply utilized the theoretical concept with the intention of coming up with a practical answer. So this is a foolproof answer, because if you didn't utilize the Mendelow's matrix, you might have thought that the environmental advocacy groups carry a high level of power. And when this is the case, you might think that, okay, we have to, always react to what they're saying. But I'm saying, I've mentioned the fact that there's no point of negotiating with them directly because their level of power is low. So this is the benefit of utilizing a theoretical concept as and when necessary. Because when you utilize a theoretical concept, you are developing a holistic answer which is foolproof, rather than trying to conduct your own evaluations. Because when we try to think on our own, sometimes we might come to wrong conclusions. So the best way to avoid wrong conclusions is to utilize a theoretical concept as and when necessary. And with regards to application, I'm pretty sure you understood how to work on an application, because up to this point, the theoretical element is covered. Then everything else is about application. For instance, when dealing with the government, I've not simply said that we should engage directly with them. I've mentioned the fact that we should conduct corporate political activity, and we have two options at our disposal. Option number one is to lobby, and option number two is to bridge. And I've explained how to lobby and bridge within my answer. And when dealing with our investors, I've said that we have to reassure our investors, and I've explained how to do so by coming up with practical recommendations. And I've also mentioned that I've not just mentioned that we have to establish a sustainability committee. I've mentioned about the composition, who should chair it, and the type of responsibilities these committee members should carry out. So that's all about application. So your practical, decision-making skills are heavily tested in this examination. So just like how I explained this answer whilst explaining the answer, just like how I taught you the theories as well as application, I've covered all these elements in the 15 masterclasses which we have developed, which are developed focused on mocks 2 to 6. And when you watch these masterclasses, you will learn theory and learn application skills. Once you have learned theory and application, then redevelop the answer plan. Develop this answer plan on your own without looking at this answer plan. Keep TCS's answer plan aside. Then you need not time yourself. Try to figure out whether you are capable of developing an answer plan which is similar. After you have developed the answer plan, this is known as redeveloping answer plans after each mock attempt. After you have redeveloped the answer plan, compare your fresh answer plan to TCS's to see whether you have covered all these points, to see whether you have missed out on certain points, to see whether you have included unnecessary points. This is the only way to improve your knowledge levels. This is the best way to conduct your revision. And once you have compared your fresh answer plan to TCS's, if you feel that your answer is still hopeless, then redevelop the answer plan once more. Keep redeveloping over and over until you are confident that you have covered all these points, you are capable of covering all these points. If so, at your examination, you will come up with well-structured answers. You know how to utilize theoretical concepts. You know how to work on an application. If so, you'd gain extremely good marks at your upcoming examination. And once you are done with this answer plan, then your next step should be to, expand the answer plan in paragraph form. So that's exactly what you can see. I've come up with a main heading which goes as managing stakeholders, and I've utilized various different paragraphs based on the number of points which I've highlighted in the answer plan. So your final answer should look something like this. All right, so that's your answering technique. Expand the answer plan, utilized in the final 20 to 25 minutes of each section, thereby expanding the answer plans of all subtasks, thereby developing a paragraph per answer point. Okay, so that's what you need to do. So I invite you to practice answering technique by attempting mock exam 1 on TCS's exam platform. I showed you how you can gain access to this mock exam 1 via our exam platform. So I hope you'd practice the answering and time management techniques which you learned right now. And after doing so within this week, I invite you to attempt mock number 2 under exam conditions. And after attempting mock number 2, watch masterclasses, learn theory, and understand application. Once you are done with these elements, then test whether you have gained something via the masterclasses by redeveloping answer plans, and keep redeveloping answer plans until you are certain that you have covered all the points, and all the points which appear within TCS's answer plan is in your head. If so, you won't struggle at your real examination. All right, so I'm happy to say that we achieved a 90% pass rate in the February sitting. We are still in the process of collating results concerning the May 2025 examination. So you can achieve a similar feat if you stick to our study plan. So if you are yet to start preparations, don't worry. As I mentioned earlier, I will share a 5-week study plan with you via the group. If you stick to it diligently, then definitely you will get extremely good marks at your examination. All right, so having said that, we are moving on to the second Q&A. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, folks, so thank you very much for those questions. I love it when you are asking a lot of questions. So we spent a lot of time on the Q&A. So thank you very much for engaging with me. And if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. Visit our website and click on the contact button, and drop us a message. Our admin staff will get in touch with you via email during office hours, and you can directly email us at info@study@tcs.com, or simply drop us a message on our WhatsApp number. And I urge you to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok, because the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops are uploaded to our YouTube handle. And also via TikTok, you'd gain access to 6 videos, which is a good mind map of the entire pre-scene. So you need not worry about memorizing pre-scene information, because we have already covered these elements via the 6 TikTok videos. And on top of that, we have already shared you the pre-scene mind map as well via the WhatsApp group. So once you have access to this mind map on a daily basis until your exam, keep going through, go through this mind map continuously, so that you constantly keeping yourself informed about or reminded of what can be what appears within your pre-scene document. And if you're yet to read our blog post, click on the blog button and read this blog post, which is a good summary of the entire pre-scene. All right, so having said that, it brings us to the end of the third and most important webinar out of the 4 webinars which we have scheduled. So I hope you gain something out of this. And as I mentioned continuously, it's essential that you practice these answering and time management techniques which you learned. Knowing these techniques won't help. You won't have the capability of developing answer plans within 30 minutes unless and otherwise you practice. So I hope you'd start attempting mocks as per our study plan under exam conditions. And when attempting each mock exam, keep practicing the answering and time management techniques. And if you do so, you will effectively manage your time and structure highly successful answers at your real examination. So I hope you'd start your preparations if you're yet to start. And as promised, I will share a 5-week study plan with you via the WhatsApp group. And I expect to see you guys in next week's webinar, in which I'm going to take you through examiners' comments. I'll also share some tips which will boost your confidence. And most importantly, I'm going to teach you stress management techniques. So I'll see you guys next week. I hope you'd start preparations. So all the very best. And if you have any questions or concerns, always drop me a message via WhatsApp. See you and take care.